But that's basically our canvas size today. And my grid size is going to be 2000 pixels. The final tile repeat is going to be 4000 by 4000. And as I said, we're going to go with a block repeat today. Okay, so let's dive in. Okay, so I've created my 6000 by 6000. I'm going to hit OK. And then I want to create a drawing guide. I've just hit the edit my grid because I want to edit the size, and choosing 2000 pixels. So what I'm actually doing here, I'm kind of creating a mock artboard essentially. So this is 4000 by 4000, and all this area is kind of dead space. That's our kind of artboard. And as I mentioned earlier, the reason why I'm doing it like that, it mimics Illustrator, and I can't design like with cut-off motifs like some people do in Procreate. So this is the way I would do it. Okay, so we're going to fill this layer, and I'm just going to tap on a corner because I want it to be precisely. We got to be precise when you're dealing with pattern repeats. You've got to be precise. And what I want to do now is just move it into place. Make sure I've got snapping on. Yeah. So that's our repeat tile. Create a new layer. And I'm going to come over to the motifs. So what I wanted to do today was, ideally, I wanted to draw at least one of the foxes, but I'm not sure if we're going to have time. So what I'm going to do is we're going to bring in the motifs, create the pattern, and then if there's time, I will draw one of the foxes just to give you an idea of how I created that. Okay, so just to give you some clue, I used one of the grids from my Cute Art Creator. So this is a multi-grid, and it basically allows you just to create, like, it's one sort of shape with lots of different sort of, ear options and kind of, little head and little feet options and legs, just to help you basically create, I don't know, maybe 3-4 different types of animals instead of feeling overwhelmed. So this is a good start. So I basically used that to create all my little foxes, which is very helpful. Okay, so I'm turning off the background, and we're going to share that as a PNG, and I'm going to copy. So another good thing you must sort of get into the habit of is creating your motifs in a separate document and then building your pattern in a separate document. That way you can always go back to those original motifs, and they're all in their layers. And if you need to make any changes, you at least have the original. So I'm just going to go back to these and copy them. So I went with 4 different foxes. You could probably get away with just doing 3. So when you're creating your main motifs, I would definitely create at least 3 variations, just so it doesn't look like you have the same thing repeated over and over. I suppose I could have done this beforehand.
No, it's great to watch you work.
Okay.
I think everyone always enjoys an insight into the real process. I think we have our foxes here now.
Yes. Okay, so I'm not sure if people noticed that I was having trouble moving them around. Sometimes Procreate goes into like a little spasm. I'm not sure why. So if your cursor isn't reacting, just force quit the app and it should be fine once you've done that. Okay, so I'm just going to arrange them and just get an idea, just play around for now. I'm eyeballing them and I'm just kind of getting an idea of where I want things to go. So the important thing is we want, as I said, we want balance, because these elements are the big elements, and you want balance throughout your pattern. And what I'm also considering as I'm moving them around is I started here in the top left-hand corner because I at least know that that is going to repeat here. And it's going to repeat here. And if I have an overlap at the top here, it'll also repeat here. So this is a good way for me to at least help me understand where those repeated elements are going to be by starting at the top here. And as I mentioned, this kind of mimics Illustrator, which for me is, yeah, much easier in my mind to work out. Okay, so every element that overlaps needs to be repeated again. So in this instance, you'll see the only fox that's doing that is that one, and it's overlapping at the top and it's overlapping on the side. So basically we need that to be repeated, oops, over here, and this guy needs to be repeated down here. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm also going to duplicate the background layer, well, the artboard layer, should I say. And then I'm going to set that artboard layer to multiply. And the reason why I'm doing that, because I want to see when it overlaps the other sort of stationary artboard. And then I'm just going to group these two so that I can move it all at once. And make sure my snapping is on. And I'm just simply going to move that down. And then I'm going to zoom in pretty close, because I want to be sure. Now you can see why I have it on multiply, so that we can see where it overlaps. And I just want to turn the guides off. And yeah, we can see.
Yeah, because you don't want like a dead pixel looking line.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Oops. So I'm going to delete that. I don't need that anymore. And then we're going to do the same for the other side. So I'm duplicating that, duplicating this layer, and I'm going to group that. Oh, it's made a weird group. I don't want that. My palm is doing all sorts of weird things. And we just need to set that to multiply.
Right. So what you were doing there, you were kind of combining your layers so that you can move the whole lot over.
Yeah, sorry, my hand was doing some weird things there on the screen. Okay, so we're doing the same thing. We're zooming right in, and I'm making sure that I'm on the correct layer. And then I'm just going to move that over. Oops. I'm going to turn off. Oh, there we go. Sometimes it creates that little line with, and then once you go out of it, it actually corrects itself, and you can see it's gone. So I'm just going to make sure that it is gone. It would be here, but it looks perfect. So I'm going to delete that. And then we have our repeated foxes. And now we just want to group those together. So I'm just pinching them, and now they're on the same layer. So whatever we do, wherever we move them, they're going to be moving together, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so now we want to work on our supporting elements. And I'm using a darker color for a bit of contrast. And just a brush from my cute art creator, we're going to draw some little humps. I don't know how else to describe them. And then I just want to close them off and fill them and fill it. Okay, I'm going to be using just one of the foliage brushes just to add some quick, kind of like, oops, other way, like a little sort of tree come flower thingy. So with this, as you can see, I'm kind of filling those gaps that we have. I'm also thinking about the fact that this is going to be repeated over here. So I just need to be aware that those elements are going to be nicely balanced. And then for some quirkiness, same color as the background, just going to add.
And sorry, which brushes are these, Lisa?
So this is the Cute Art Creator.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a whole bunch of different singles and doubles for decorating and kind of embellishing your work.
It's so speedy.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm always one for speedy. Just going to turn that down a dash. Okay, that looks weird. And just want to add some little blobs using Lisa's pencil. I'm still on the same layer, and you can change, have a color per layer, but I know what I'm going for, so I'm not going to do that in this instance. So you could have put the orange on a new layer if you wanted to. Okay, I think maybe we need another little guy over here. Maybe that.
Love the palette as well. It's kind of mustardy.
Yeah. And yeah, as I said, quite simple as well, which is less overwhelming for me at least. Okay, so what I want to do now, obviously we have this little guy's kind of sticking over, so he needs to go over here. And we need to do the same thing that we did with that fox. So I'm going to duplicate that background, and I'm going to duplicate our flower layer, group those, and just set that to multiply. Make sure my snapping is on, which it is. Just want to bring those guides back on. Oops, that's not what I want. Okay. And bring it across. Just going to zoom in, make sure that it is. Okay, so as you can see, we have a little gap. Oops. Can be a little finicky, but if you zoom in close enough, you'll get it right. And I'm going to delete that and just pinch those two together because we want those on the same layer. Okay, so we can see this little fox is too close. So I'm just going to move him over a dash. Okay, so now we're going to use some of our fillers, and again using a brush from the Cute Art Creator just to save some time. One of the foliage brushes, I'm using Cute Shoots, and I'm just simply going to randomly draw little flowers, well, little leaves. Again, we're going for balance, so think about where the elements, where the gaps are.
Really helpful to think about the kind of primary characters, the supportive elements, and then the what was the name for the third one? Sorry,
They're fillers. I just call
fillers,
them fillers.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this, we want to be careful. oops, not to go over the top unless you don't mind repeating that again. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't go over that side. And then as a filler, I'm going to come back to that same brush we used on the little heels, just for some continuity. And again, just randomly placing them. So the reason why I deleted that, because it's kind of right underneath each other, which looks weird. And then when in doubt, we love our little dots. Okay, I think we are getting there. Okay, so that to me looks pretty good in terms of how I visualize it to be. So I'm going to test it now. I'm going to make a duplicate of it, just in case I want to come back and make changes. So this is the document that I'm going to crop now and actually create that repeat tile. So coming back to my drawing guide, I'm just going to make sure that's on. And I'm choosing crop and resize. And we know our repeat tile is 4,000 by 4,000. So again, you always want to be working with precise measurements. And then I'm going to hit make sure that snapping's on, because I want that crop to absolutely snap to that sort of fake artboard that I created, and it looks pretty good. Let's get rid of that guide. And now let's test it. So I've just chosen JPEG, and I'm going to copy that and come out. And I'm going to choose clipboard because that's what we want. Make sure, I actually don't need the guide for this one. Okay, so what we're going to do now is basically do a duplicate into 4 quarters, and this is going to help me test the pattern and make sure it is actually repeating and that it's balanced. So I'm just simply going to make sure that I have snapping on and it's on uniform, and you'll see it automatically will snap to that quarter. And I'm going to duplicate that. Duplicate that. And again. Oh, we didn't repeat that. So here we can already see mistake. So we had one that was overlapping and we didn't repeat that. But if we did, we can kind of see that that's not a bad balance. We might want to reduce some of the heels so that they're not so strong. But generally, we have our repeats and there's no funny little white lines.
It's really helpful to see it as a repeating pattern, zoom out, and then I guess you go back into the source artwork and tweak things like that, right?
Yes.
For the balance.
So that's always a good thing the nice thing about Illustrator, why I love it, because you can constantly test. So this is a good way to, even halfway through, if you want to check your work in Procreate, this is a good way to do that as well. And just remember to always make a duplicate of that document so that you don't damage your original. And again, always a good idea to create your motifs in a separate document so that you can always go back to those as well.